The wind outside was sharp and wild, howling through the dark forest like a beast searching for prey. Inside a small wooden cabin, Jacob sat near the fire, sipping warm broth from an old metal mug. The crackling flames were his only comfort in this frozen world. He hadn't seen another human in weeks. Then dash knock knock. Jacob froze. His mug stopped at his lips. That sound? It wasn't the wind. It was real. It was a knock. Impossible, he whispered. He reached for the shotgun hanging on the wall. Quietly, carefully, he moved toward the door. The knock came again, softer this time, like someone was barely strong enough to try. When he opened the door, cold air slammed into his face. But that wasn't what made his heart stop. A girl stood there. No, not a human girl. She had pale lavender skin, long silver hair soaked from snow, and glowing eyes that shimmered like stars. Her thin dress was torn. Her arms hugged her small body, shaking. Jacob didn't move. Neither did she. What are you? He said slowly. She dropped to her knees. Her lips trembled, but no words came. Instead, she pressed her forehead to the wooden step, begging without speaking. His first instinct was to close the door. Aliens meant trouble. He didn't owe her anything, but something in her eyes. It reminded him of a wounded animal. She wasn't a threat. She was scared, frozen. Alone, Jacob sighed, stepped back, and waved her in. One night, they said, she crawled inside slowly, careful not to touch anything, as she looked around like the cabin was sacred. Then she sat close to the fire and stared at it like she'd never seen one before. He handed her a blanket. She took it with both hands and whispered something in a language he didn't know. He watched her from across the room as she warmed her hands. Her fingers were shaking. Her lips had turned a faint blue. She looked too fragile for this world. What happened to you? He asked, where are you from? She looked at him and blinked. No reply. But her eyes said everything. Pain, fear, hunger, cold. He gave her soup. She sniffed it first, then slowly tasted it. A strange look crossed her face, most like she'd never eaten hot food before. You understand me? He asked. She looked at him and nodded once. A small, careful nod. He leaned forward. What's your name? The girl pointed at herself. Al. Ri, she whispered. Ielri. Jacob nodded slowly. Okay, Alri, I'm Jacob. She pointed at him. Jacob, she repeated. She said it perfectly. No accent, no hesitation. He frowned. How he hadn't said his name before that. He was sure. That night, Jacob didn't sleep much. He sat on the edge of his bed, shotgun nearby, listening to the wind. Alri was curled up by the fire, wrapped in his blanket like a child hiding from monsters. He looked at her. Who was she running from? Why did she come here? Why did she know his name? The fire cracked again. She stirred. He pretended to sleep. She turned her head and looked straight at him. Her glowing eyes met his, even in the dark. Then she whispered again, Jacob. Ah. Slowly, she smiled. Morning came cold and silent. Snow covered the trees outside like white armor. Jacob opened his eyes and saw the fire still glowing low. But what surprised him most was Alri. She hadn't left. She was sitting near the window, watching the snow fall like it was the most beautiful thing in the universe. The blanket was still wrapped around her, and steam rose from the bowl of soup he'd left out. She heard him move, turned, smiled. Good morning, she said in perfect English. Jacob sat up. What? Good morning, she repeated. You're speaking English now? She tilted her head. I listen, I learn. His mouth went dry. How was that even possible? No translator. No tech. Just her. And her mind. "You're not just any alien, are you?" he asked. She stood slowly, walked to the fire, sat beside it again. "You help me?" she said. "So I stay." Jacob felt a chill that wasn't from the cold. "What do you mean, stay?" Alry looked at him, then pointed to the fire, then to her heart. "This is warm. This is safe," she said, and softly, as if she had chosen the words carefully, she whispered, "This is home." Jacob stared at her. She had come for one night, but something told him she had no plans of ever leaving. Jacob didn't believe in magic, but what happened that morning felt close to it. The alien girl, Ori, had spoken to him. Not just copying. Sounds she spoke real English with real meaning. Her voice was soft and careful, but each word was like a new thread tying her to his world. He stared at her. How did you learn that fast?" Alry blinked slowly, her glowing eyes calm. "I listen." She pointed to her ears, long, thin, and twitching slightly like a cat's. Memory strong. Sound stays. Words, click. Jacob rubbed the back of his neck. Click. "Like puzzle," she said. Then she smiled. Jacob felt a strange warmth inside his chest. As the hours passed, the forest outside remained buried in snow. Wind scratched against the windows, but inside the cabin, the fire was steady, and the silence between them wasn't uncomfortable anymore. Jacob handed her a wooden spoon and a bowl of boiled vegetables. She took it gently, nodding in thanks. She still moved like a shadow light, quiet and alert. He sat across from her. "Where are you from?" She hesitated, then drew something in the air with her finger. A star. Then a line that curved down. Then another star. Jacob frowned. A star map. Alry nodded. "Far, not charted. By your people." Jacob whistled softly. "So you came a long way. But why here? Why Earth?" Her eyes dimmed. Running. From what? She looked down. Her fingers clutched the spoon tighter. Pain, people hurt. Jacob could feel the tremble in her voice. He didn't ask more. Not yet. Later that evening, as night returned, Jacob stepped outside with his axe to cut more firewood. Alry followed quietly, watching the trees like they were ready to attack. She didn't flinch from the cold, but she stood close to him, always keeping him in view. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "Trees, strange. Loud, loud." She pointed to her head. "I hear ... more than you." Jacob raised an eyebrow. "You have better hearing." Alry nodded. "Smell, hearing, fast heal. But weak, too cold." Jacob looked at her. She wasn't lying. She moved like a deer, smooth and quick. But her skin, that pale lavender tone, looked too soft for the freezing forest. Without the fire, she might have died the first night. Suddenly, she grabbed his sleeve. Her ears twitched. Something's near. Jacob tensed. He scanned the woods. It looked empty, but Alry was frozen, her eyes locked on the tree line. He heard nothing, then a crunch. A slow, heavy footstep in the snow. Not animal, too heavy. Back inside, he whispered. But Alry didn't move. She crouched low and pressed her fingers to the ground. Her eyes widened. Hunter drone. What? Metal? Machine? Tracker? Smell? Me, Jacob's blood turned cold. They followed you. She nodded once. Yes, if, find me. They bring others. Jacob pulled her up. We're not letting that happen. They rushed back into the cabin. Jacob locked the door, slid the bolt, and pulled down the old blackout cloth for the windows. Alry crouched by the fire, eyes wide. Does it see heat? Jacob asked. Yes, seeks life. But not smart. Good, he muttered, grabbing his. Hunting rifle. They waited in silence. Then a thump on the roof. Alry gasped. Jacob raised the gun. Ah! Shadow slid past the frosted window. Thin, spider-like legs. A small, glowing red eye scanned the wall, then the door. "Stay back," Jacob whispered. The drone paused, as if sniffing. Then it moved toward the chimney. "No." Alry shouted. Standing, Jacob fired. Boom. The cabin shook. Sparks burst from the roof as metal crashed and burned in the snow outside. Silence. Jacob exhaled slowly. "You okay?" Alry looked at him in shock, then nodded. "You, protect. Said you could stay. I meant it." She walked toward him slowly, her face soft, unsure. "I don't understand you," she said. Jacob chuckled. "Me neither, sometimes." But then she looked at him, really looked, and whispered, "Why risk your life?" "For me?" Jacob didn't answer right away. He looked out the window, then back at her. "Because when someone knocks on your door in the middle of a storm, you answer it. Simple as that." Her eyes shimmered like wet diamonds, and for the first time, she reached out and touched his hand. That night, Jacob found her curled by the fire, again but closer now. Her back nearly touched his bedroll. She whispered one last thing before drifting off to sleep. "I stay because fire warm. But you, warmer." Jacob lay awake long after that, because now wasn't just his fire she was sleeping beside. It was him. The shadows in the snow fell heavier the next morning. Jacob stood outside the cabin, splitting wood. His breath came out in thick white clouds, but even with the cold air biting his skin, his thoughts were somewhere else, on the girl sleeping. Near the fire. Alry. Every time he looked at her, he forgot she wasn't human. Inside, Alry stirred. She had wrapped herself in one of Jacob's flannel shirts. Far too big for her slim frame, and it made her look even smaller. But her glowing eyes, alert and sharp, told another story. She watched Jacob through the frosty window, her fingers gently tracing the steam. He had saved her again last night, not just from the cold, but from the hunter drone. She owed him more. Then she could say. Later, Jacob brought in firewood. Alry met him at the door. "I help," she said. Grabbing a log, he raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" She nodded quickly, proud. But when she stepped outside, the snow reached her knees. She gasped and nearly slipped. Jacob caught her arm. "Maybe inside help is better," he said, smirking. She gave him a look. "I try." Nah. She did. She stacked the wood carefully, watched the fire, even stirred the soup without being asked. That night, they sat side by side. "Where did you learn to survive?" Jacob asked. "My mother," Alry replied. Before she was taken, Jacob's smile faded. "Taken," she nodded. "Raiders. Same ones who send hunters. You think they'll come? They always come. Until I'm caught or gone." Jacob stared into the fire. "Then we need to be ready." Suddenly, a sharp sound cut through the air. Throt. Alry's head snapped toward the window. Jacob followed her gaze. "Sniper," she said softly. "Down." Jacob pulled her to the floor just as the glass shattered. A beam of red light scorched the log wall where her head had been seconds before. The cabin filled with smoke and sparks. "They found you." Jacob growled. "No," she said, eyes wide. "They found you too now." The two crawled to the corner. Jacob grabbed his rifle, checking ammo. Alry clutched a curved dagger that had been hidden in her cloak. Its metal shimmered like moonlight. She wasn't just a scared girl anymore. She was ready to fight. "Back door," Jacob whispered. Alry nodded. They slipped outside as silent as shadows. Snow crunched under Jacob's boots. But Alry moved like wind, barely touching the ground. They circled the cabin and spotted it. A tall figure in black armor stood by the tree line. Visor glowing red, scanning the cabin through a scope. Jacob raised his rifle, then hesitated. "That armor, it's not alien," he whispered. "That's Earth-made." Alry looked surprised. "What?" Jacob narrowed his eyes. "That's military tech. Earth special ops, maybe. But why would humans be helping alien raiders?" Alry touched his shoulder. "Not help. Sold. Some humans trade us for tech." Jacob felt sick. "You mean people are selling you?" She nodded slowly. His grip on the rifle tightened. "Not anymore. They planned a trap. Jacob had rigged old motion sensors and tripwires long ago for wild animals, but tonight they had a purpose. He and Alry moved quietly through the forest, circling around, avoiding drone lights. The hunter was cautious, scanning for movement, then click. AELRI triggered a branch. The hunter turned. Boom. An explosion of snow and dirt shot upward as Jacob fired from behind. The shot missed, but the distraction worked. Alry lunged, her dagger slashed through the hunter's side. Sparks flew as the armor cracked. The hunter swung wildly, knocking her aside. Jacob aimed again. Bang. This time, the shot hit. The hunter collapsed with a heavy thud. Alry stood, breathing hard. Her face had a small cut, but she looked more angry than hurt. She walked to the fallen figure and pulled off the helmet. Jacob stepped beside her. What they saw made his blood freeze. It was a young human male, eyes open wide. "Dead? He's just a kid," Jacob whispered. "He was no soldier." Alry's voice shook. "They pay young ones to hunt us. Cheap, easy to control." Jacob stared down. Something inside him twisted. This wasn't just her fight anymore. They returned to the cabin in silence. Jacob cleaned Alry's cut with care. She didn't wince. She just watched him, quiet and still. "You stayed when you could have run," she said softly. Jacob looked at her. "I'm not leaving you." She hesitated, then whispered, "Then I stay. Too, not for fire. For you." He didn't speak. But the way he looked at her, he didn't have to. That night, they didn't speak again, but they sat closer than ever before. The snowstorm raged outside, and the girl who once begged for one night now clung to his warmth like it was the last safe thing in the universe. The fire burned low, but the heat between them stayed. Alry sat with her knees to her chest, Jacob's flannel shirt still wrapped around her. Her silver hair fell over one shoulder. Outside, the world was buried in white silence, but inside, the storm had only just begun. She looked up. "You should send me away." Jacob didn't answer. "If I stay, they'll come again. More than one. You will die." He looked at her, his hands resting on the table. "I'll die alone anyway. Might as well die doing something right." Eyes filled with something strange guilt. She reached across the table and touched his hand gently. "I don't want you to die. Then help me make sure I don't." The next day, they turned the cabin into something more than just a shelter. A fortress. Jacob showed her his old hunting gear, leftover military crates, wire, batteries, and sensors. Alry showed him alien tools hidden in her belt, tiny devices that hummed with blue energy. Together, they set traps. Tripwires connected to spikes hidden beneath snow. Glass bottles hung from tree branches to catch sound. A small tunnel beneath. The cabin was dug out and reinforced with wood planks and escape route. Just in case. Alry moved quickly, like she had done this before. "You've done this before," Jacob said, amused. She nodded. "On my world, when the fire came, we ran, then we fought." "What kind of fire?" She looked far away. The kind that doesn't burn wood. It burns families, homes, hope. Jacob didn't ask more. Not yet. That evening, they sat together and worked in silence. Jacob carved wooden stakes. Alry melted snow for water using her handheld alien torch. Then she pulled something from her bag. Oh, smooth black stone with glowing red cracks. What's that? Jacob asked. A gift from my mother. It is a memory stone. She held it, close to her heart. It holds voices of those we love. When they're gone, we can still hear them. She pressed the stone gently. A soft hum filled the room. Then a voice. Alry, if you're hearing this, you're alive. Run far, trust no one. Not even humans. But if you do find one who's kind, tell him about us. Tell him we never wanted this war. The voice faded. Jacob was stunned. That was your mother. Alry nodded, eyes moist. She thought all humans were cruel. Jacob leaned back. I wouldn't blame her. We've done terrible things, but you're not like them. He didn't reply, but he reached into his drawer and pulled out a small wooden carving. A dog. What's this? Alry asked. My brother made it before he was taken, by the same kind of people that now hunt you. She touched it gently. So we both lost something. He nodded, and for the first time, their pain felt shared. A few hours later, they were out again, reinforcing the perimeter. The snow was falling slower now, but the forest had changed. It didn't feel quiet. It felt watched. Alry stopped. They're near. Jacob tensed. How do you know? She closed her eyes. Her ears twitched. Birds stopped singing. Wind smells wrong. Too much metal in the air. Jacob scanned the tree line. Time to light up the traps. They rushed back toward the cabin. But halfway there, a whistle cut through the air. Alry dove forward just as a net wrapped in blue energy shot out from the trees. She rolled, cutting it with her blade, but a burn marked her arm. Jacob raised his rifle and fired into the woods. A scream answered him. One attacker down, but more were coming. Back at the cabin, Jacob pulled open a hidden hatch near the fireplace. In here. Go now. Alry hesitated. I won't leave you. I'm right behind you. Just go. Reluctantly, she climbed down. Jacob tossed her the carving. Hold on to that. Then he turned and slammed the hatch shut. Outside, the hunters were closing in. This time, not human, but tall creatures. In black armor with glowing helmets. 3 of them. Jacob stepped onto the porch with the rifle across his chest. Leave now. Or you'll wish you had. They didn't speak, just raised their weapons. But click. The first one stepped on a pressure plate. Boom. Spikes shot up through the snow, impaling the nearest attacker. The other 2 jumped back, but Jacob fired before. They could react. One took a bullet in the leg. The last one ran. Inside the tunnel, Alry could feel the vibration. The cabin shook above her. She clutched the carving close. Then the hatch opened. Jacob dropped in, sweating, breathing hard. She threw her arms around him. You came back. I told you, I'm not leaving. She buried her face in his chest. I don't understand. Why risk everything? He looked down at her. Because, maybe, just maybe, you're worth it. That night, they didn't sleep. They just sat together. In the hidden room, the small fire from a battery torch lighting their faces. She whispered softly, "This is the first time I feel safe." Jacob smiled. Then we're doing something right. The storm outside was ending, but the war was only beginning. The cabin smoldered behind them. Smoke curled from the roof. The traps had worked, but now Jacob and Alry knew they wouldn't hold forever. They'll return, Alry said, clutching her wounded arm. And this time, more will come. Jacob tightened the strap on his backpack. Then we make our stand somewhere they don't expect. He reached down and helped her to her feet. We take the fight to them. The two moved swiftly through the frozen forest, boots crunching in the snow. Auri guided the way, her steps quiet, her eyes sharp. She sniffed the air like a hunter. They have a base, she said. Nearby, hidden in the rocks, human-built. Half human, half stolen alien tech. Jacob's jaw tightened. Figures, sellouts. They reached the cliffside before sunset. From there, hidden behind frost-covered branches, they saw a metal structure half buried in snow. Energy fences buzzed in silence. A landing pad blinked with red lights. Jacob whistled low. How do we get in? Auri smiled faintly. Same way I escaped the first time. He raised a brow. You've been here before. She nodded. I was kept there. In chains until I bit one of them and ran. Jacob chuckled. Remind me never to get on your bad side. Auri glanced at him. Too late. Night fell. They waited. Jacob lay beside her in the snow, both cloaked in white sheets to blend in. Steam from his breath touched her cheek. You cold, he whispered. I'm always cold, she said softly. Except when I'm near you. He swallowed, looked away. They both stared at the glowing facility. What happens if we win? She asked. Jacob shrugged. We go back to the cabin. Fix it up, sit by the fire. And if we lose? He turned to her. Then we die side by side. Not a bad way to go. She smiled faintly and reached over, slipping her fingers into his. They stayed like that until the first enemy patrol came. 2 figures in black armor, helmets glowing green. Scanned the perimeter. Jacob signaled. Auri nodded. She moved fast, sliding through snow like a whisper. Her blade flashed once. The first man dropped without a sound. Jacob rushed the second, tackling him hard into a tree. The man gasped, rifle falling from his hand. Jacob silenced him with the butt of the gun. Both enemies were down. Quick, clean. Auri grabbed a wrist device from one body. She tapped it twice. The energy fence at the rear entrance blinked and shut off. We go now, she said. Inside, the place smelled like oil and burning metal. The hallways were narrow and dim. Pipes hissed overhead. Jacob's heart pounded, rifle raised. Auri moved beside him, silent. They passed rooms full of alien gear, stolen tech, strange cages. Then they heard it. A voice, crying. A child? Jacob peeked through a steel bar door. Inside was a small alien girl, no older than 10, with glowing blue eyes and curled horns. She was chained to the wall. Jacob looked at Auri. She stared at the child, eyes wet. I know her. Her name is Vel. She was taken with me. Jacob blasted the lock. The door swung open. The girl screamed till she saw Auri, big sister. She sobbed. Auri dropped to her knees and wrapped her arms around the girl. Jacob stood guard, scanning the hall. We don't have time, he whispered. We need to go now. They fled through the corridor, Auri carrying Vel in her arms. Alarms began to blare. Unauthorized access. Sector 3 breach. Footsteps thundered behind them. Jacob turned and fired. The corridor lit up with red sparks. He shouted, "Keep going. I'll cover." "No," Auri yelled. "Together." She placed Vel down and pulled Jacob forward. "We run or we die." Jacob didn't argue. They sprinted toward the open exit as bullets scorched the air behind them. Auri activated the stolen wrist device. The outer fence shut down for 5 seconds, just enough time to dive through. They rolled into the snow, gasping, Vel clinging tightly to her sister. The cold wind bit at their faces. Jacob turned and tossed a grenade toward the open base door. Boom! The entrance exploded in fire and smoke. The facility would never be the same. They returned to the forest by sunrise, hiding in a hollow cave Owry once used long ago. Inside, Jacob wrapped Vel in his coat. She looked up at him. "You're not like the others," she whispered. "You're warm." Jacob smiled tiredly. "So I've heard." Owry sat beside him, bruised, bleeding, but alive. She leaned her head on his shoulder. "You fought for me. For her." "I'd do it again," he said quietly. "You could have died, but I didn't." She looked up at him, eyes glowing softly in the darkness. "Jacob, I don't want to go back to space, or war, or fear." He placed a hand on hers. "Then don't." Outside, the forest was quiet. The fire in their hearts burned brighter than any storm. And for the first time, 3 hearts beat in rhythm beside. The flame, Jacob stirred the pot over the fire, the smell of boiled herbs filling the air. Inside the cave, warmth returned slowly. He looked over at the 2 girls bundled in thick blankets. Owry sat upright, cradling her little sister Vel, who had finally fallen asleep. But Jacob could see the pain in Owry's face. Not just exhaustion, something deeper. "You're burning up," he said quietly. Owry didn't deny it. She wiped sweat from her forehead and leaned against the wall. Her lavender skin shimmered strangely in the torchlight. "I'm not healing like before," she whispered. Jacob moved closer and checked the bandage on her ribs. The wound from the hunter fight hadn't closed. In fact, was glowing faint red. He frowned. "This is new. It's the cold," Owry said. "And the connection." Jacob tilted his head. "What connection?" She didn't answer right away. Then she looked at him seriously. "You, me, the fire, our touch." Jacob blinked. "Are you saying I'm making you sick?" Owry shook her head. "No, you're making me feel, and that changes us." He was confused. She placed her palm on her chest, over her heart. "My kind doesn't bond easily, but when we do, it shifts everything. Our bodies adapt, our minds open. We feel more, stronger, deeper." Jacob watched her closely. "You're saying we're bonded now?" Owry nodded. "You risked your life, shared your warmth, chose me. That is sacred to my kind." Jacob looked away, unsure what to say. "I didn't do it to earn a bond," he muttered. "I know. That's why it's real." Later, Jacob built a second fire near the cave entrance to keep watch. The snow was lighter now, but the forest felt different, calmer. Almost like it respected what had happened. Owry walked up beside him, wrapped in her blanket. Her skin still glowed faintly, but this time it wasn't fever. It looked beautiful. "Your people? Do they have soulmates?" she asked softly. Jacob stared into the flames. "Some believe that. Others just believe in choosing someone and sticking by them." Owry nodded slowly. "My kind calls it Cliven. A flame shared by 2 lives, rare, ancient." She turned to him. "I didn't come to your door to find it. I came to survive." He met her eyes. "But now?" Owry stepped closer. "Now I don't want to be anywhere else." Vel woke later, crying softly. She had dreamed of cages and chains. Jacob sat beside her and handed her a carved wooden rabbit. "It's not much, but it might help." She stared at it. "Why die? Did you make this?" "I used to carve with my brother. He made better ones." Vel smiled shyly. "It's perfect." Then she reached for Owry's hand. "Are we safe now?" Owry looked at Jacob. He answered, "You're safe as long as I'm breathing." As days passed, Owry's body began to change. Her strength returned, but it was more than that. She was faster, even sharper. Her eyes changed color in different light, and her fingertips began to glow when she touched the fire. Jacob watched her in awe. "You're evolving." Auri nodded. "The bond awakens something ancient. My kind used to live close to humans, long before the wars. Our biology remembers. But why now?" She looked at him. "Because I finally felt safe enough to change." Jacob sat beside her, shoulders touching. "So what happens to me?" Auri smiled. "Maybe nothing. Maybe everything." That night, a cold wind blew through the cave. Vel slept soundly beside the fire. Jacob lay on his side, watching the flames. Auri moved quietly and lay beside him, not touching at first. Then, her hand found his. He didn't. "Pull away. I dreamed you'd leave," she whispered. "I won't." "You say that, but humans always leave." Jacob turned to face her. "I'm not like the ones who caged you, or the ones who trade lives for tech. I chose you, even when I didn't understand you." She looked at him in the firelight. "And I chose you," she said softly, "even when I feared you." Their hands intertwined. "I thought my world ended when I lost my home," she whispered. Jacob pulled the blanket over both of them. "Maybe this is the beginning of something new." But just as peace settled over them, Vel sat up in the dark, eyes wide with fear. "Sister," she said, voice shaking, "I saw something." Auri sat up. "What?" "A ship, landing in the trees." Jacob was already on his feet, grabbing his rifle. "They've found us again." Auri stood too. Her glow faded, but her voice sharpened. "Then this time, we don't run." The night sky lit up with red streaks. From the cave's edge, Jacob saw the ship descend, quiet but heavy. Auri stood beside him, her silver hair glowing in the moonlight. Her fingers wrapped around Vel's small hand. "It's not a war ship," Auri whispered. "It's a royal vessel. My people." Jacob's heart tightened. "So they found you?" Auri nodded. "Yes, but I didn't call them." Vel stared at the ship, eyes wide. "They came for us," Auri said softly. "They came for me." Within minutes, a landing light painted the snowy forest gold. Trees swayed as the tall, sleek ship landed gracefully between stone cliffs. 3 figures stepped out, tall aliens wearing ceremonial robes, not armor. Their skin shimmered in shifting colors. They carried staffs, not weapons. One of them approached and removed her hood. Jacob stepped in front of Auri, protectively, but Auri gently touched his arm. "She's not a threat. She's my aunt, a speaker of the flame." The woman spoke, her voice like music. "Auri, child of ash. You survived." "I did," Auri said, "because he let me in." The woman's eyes shifted to Jacob. "The human." Jacob nodded stiffly. "Just doing the right thing." "No," the woman said. "You did something ancient, something sacred." Auri stepped forward, her tone firm. "I won't return with you." The woman frowned. "But you carry the bond. Your body glows. The old blood is awake. Your people need you now." "I know," Auri replied. "But I chose him, and he chose me. That matters more." Vel tugged her sister's hand. "Can we stay here?" The woman looked from the firelight in the cave to the human who had defended them. Then she smiled gently. "So be it." But then a sudden worry sound cut the air. From the cliffside another ship descended. Not elegant, not peaceful. Hunters. The woman's eyes widened. They followed us, or waited for this moment. Jacob raised his rifle. Everyone inside. Now. Auri shook her head. No more running. Vel backed into the cave. The alien royal guards took defensive positions, but Jacob stepped beside Auri and whispered, "One last fight." Auri's body shimmered. Her glowing fingertips lit up with power as she drew her blade. "I'll burn for you," she whispered, "even if it ends me." He looked at her. "You already changed me." The enemy ship opened. 6 black-armored hunters stepped out, but they weren't prepared, not for a bonded. Flame-Wielder, not for a human who'd turned his home into a war zone for one. "Alien girl," Auri raised her hand. Flames erupted from her skin. The ancient bond between her and Jacob surged his presence, giving her strength. His trust unlocking power buried in her blood. Jacob fired. Guards launched plasma bolts. Auri struck like lightning, her blade a blur of silver and red. 1 hunter fell, then 2, but a third charged Jacob. He tripped, fell back until Auri stood over him and shouted a single word in her language. The hunter froze and burst into ash. It was over in minutes. Smoke rose. Bodies lay still. Jacob limped back to the fire, bleeding from a cut across his brow. Auri dropped beside him. Exhausted, she placed her hand on his chest. "I almost lost you." He smiled weakly. "Not today." The speaker of the flame approached. "Them you are bonded in truth," she said, "and your fire is real." Auri didn't look at her. She looked at Jacob, then let it burn forever. Later that night, Belle slept peacefully beside the fire. The speaker and her guards prepared to leave before entering her ship. She turned one last time. "There will be peace soon. When the fires across the stars fade, you may come find us." Jacob nodded. "We'll think about it." She smirked. "You'll come, but not yet." The ship rose, glowing like a moon, and vanished into the stars. Back in the cave, Auri took Jacob's hand and placed it over her heart. "You didn't just give me a night, Jacob. You gave me a future." He looked at her, eyes soft. "You made my fire a home." She smiled. "And now, I sleep beside it every night." Outside, the snow fell gently. The forest was quiet, and inside, the fire danced in the eyes of a human, an alien girl. And her little sister 3 lives now bound by trust, by warmth, and by the kind of bond that even the stars respected.